Ambassador Minjun Kim stood at the window of Concordia Station and watched the stars. Behind him, the great council chamber buzzed with alien voices. Hundreds of species had gathered here, all trying to stop a war that threatened to destroy half the galaxy. Minjun had been a diplomat for 20 years. He had negotiated trade deals, settled border disputes, and helped colonies find peace. But this was different. This was the biggest war the galaxy had seen in centuries, and somehow, humanity had been asked to help stop it. The Velkron Dominion and the Ashiri Collective had been fighting for 3 years. Entire star systems lay in ruins. Billions had died. Both sides were exhausted, but neither would surrender. The Galactic Council had tried everything to make them stop. Nothing worked. Then someone suggested bringing in the humans. Minjun smiled at the memory. 5 years ago, the Council had barely acknowledged humanity existed. Humans were newcomers, barely 200 years in space. The Council had existed for 50,000 years. Ancient species with ancient wisdom ruled the galaxy, or so they claimed. But humans had something the old species had forgotten. Humans knew how to fight, and more importantly, humans knew when to stop fighting. Both the Velkron and Ashiri had faced human forces in small conflicts. They respected human strength. If humans said peace was possible, they would listen. Ambassador Kim, a voice said behind him, the Council is ready to hear your proposal. Minjun turned and followed the aide into the chamber. The room was massive, built for species of all shapes and sizes. Some delegates floated in tanks of water. Others clung to the walls with multiple limbs. A few existed as clouds of gas held together by force fields. At the center sat High Arbiter Zythus. He was a Pharon, a species that looked like a cross between a mantis and a dragon. The Pharons were one of the oldest council races. They had been exploring space when humans still lived in caves. Zythus looked down at Minjun with 6 ancient eyes. There was no warmth in that gaze, only cold assessment. Ambassador Kim, Zythus said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless words. The Council awaits your wisdom. Several delegates made sounds that the translator interpreted as laughter. Minjun ignored them. He had dealt with worse insults. Thank you, High Arbiter, Minjun said. He activated the holographic display. Maps and data filled the air above him. I have spent 3 months studying this conflict. I have spoken with both the Velkron and the Ashiri. I believe I understand the real problem. Please, enlighten us, Zythus said. The sarcasm was obvious even through the translator. Minjun continued calmly. This war did not start over ideology or hatred. It started over resources. Minjun calmly resting. Minjun continued over resources. The Korthan Nebula has rare elements both sides need. For decades, they shared access through a complicated treaty. Then, that treaty broke down. We know the history, human, a Velkron delegate interrupted. His scales rippled with anger. We do not need a child to explain it to us. Then you know the solution, Minjun said. The nebula must be declared neutral territory. Neither side controls it. Instead, an independent board manages access. Both sides get equal shares. Both sides have equal say. He changed the display to show his detailed proposal. Mining rights, distribution schedules, dispute resolution processes. He had spent months on this. It was fair, practical, and most importantly, it would work. Beyond the resources, both sides have legitimate grievances. Minjun continued. The Velkron feel the Ashiri broke the original treaty. The Ashiri feel the Velkron used their economic power to cheat them. Both are partly right. My proposal includes reparations, apologies, and a new framework for future cooperation. The chamber fell silent. Minjun could see some delegates nodding. Even a few Velkron and Ashiri representatives looked interested. Then Zythus spoke. This is simplistic Deathworlder thinking, the High Arbiter said. His tone was dismissive, almost bored. You reduce a complex conflict spanning centuries to mere resource disputes. You ignore the deep cultural and historical factors at play. With respect, High Arbiter, Minjun said carefully, I have addressed the cultural factors. Pages 30 through 50 of my proposal deal specifically with, we have our own solution, Zythus interrupted. He activated a different display. The Council has crafted a sophisticated agreement that takes into account the true complexity of this situation. Minjun studied the Council's proposal. His heart sank. It was terrible. The Velkron got 70% of Nebula access. The Ashiri got 30% and had to pay reparations for starting the war. Even though the Velkron had provoked them, there were no neutral oversight, no independent mediators, nothing to prevent the same problems from happening again. High Arbiter, Minjun said slowly, this plan will not work. The Ashiri will never accept these terms. Even if they sign, they will feel cheated. The resentment will grow. In a few years, maybe less, the war will start again. Your concerns are noted, Zythus said. But the Council has decades of experience you lack. We understand these species better than you ever could. The Velkron have significant economic influence on the Council, Minjun said, his voice harder now. 12 Council members have trade agreements that depend on Velkron support. This proposal favors the Velkron not because it is right, but because it is profitable. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. The translators struggled to keep up. Zythus raised his forearms, and the noise died down. You forget yourself, human, Zythus said coldly. Humanity has been part of this galaxy for barely 2 centuries. The Council has maintained peace for 50,000 years. Perhaps you should observe and learn rather than presume to instruct civilizations millions of years older than yours. Minjun felt his jaw tighten. Around him, other delegates nodded in agreement. The message was clear. Humans were children playing at galactic politics. They should sit down and be quiet while the adults handled things. I see, Minjun said quietly. He closed his data display. Thank you for clarifying the Council's position. He turned to leave. Several human delegates stood to follow him. Where are you going? Zythus demanded. The negotiations are not complete. Minjun stopped at the door. He looked back at the High Arbiter. Yes, they are, he said. Humanity withdraws from these peace talks. We also withdraw from all Council diplomatic initiatives. Effective immediately. We thank the Council for the opportunity to observe and learn. We will continue to do so from a distance. You cannot be serious, Zythus said. But now there was uncertainty in his voice. Completely serious. Minjun said, You have made it clear that human input is not valued. We will not waste anyone's time by remaining. Good luck with your sophisticated solution, High Arbiter. I hope I am wrong about the outcome. 2. The human delegation walked out. Behind them, the chamber exploded in confused chatter. Some delegates seemed worried. Others laughed. Zythus sat frozen, clearly not believing the humans would actually leave. As Minjun walked down the corridor toward the human ships, his second-in-command, Seo Yun Park, caught up to him. Sir, are we really doing this? She asked. Yes, Minjun said. We offered them the truth. They chose politics and pride instead. Now they will learn the hard way. A lot of people are going to die. I know, Minjun said. His voice was heavy with sadness. But we cannot force them to be wise. We can only step back and let them face the consequences of their choices. The human ships departed Concordia Station within the hour. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their negotiations. Confident in their ancient wisdom, they did not know that everything was about to fall apart. The Council's peace treaty lasted exactly 13 days. High Arbiter Zythus stood in the communication center of Concordia Station and watched disaster unfold in real time. The holographic displays showed Ashiri battle fleets dropping out of hyperspace around 3 Velkron core worlds. Billions of civilians had no warning, no time to evacuate. How did this happen? Zythus demanded. His translator could not hide the panic in his voice. The Ashiri signed the treaty, Council Military Coordinator, Vex said. He was a veteran of 100 campaigns, and even he looked shaken. But they never intended to honor it. They used the negotiation time to reposition their fleets. Now they are striking at the heart of Velkron space. Zythus watched cities burn on the displays. He had been so certain the Council's solution would work. 50,000 years of diplomatic experience could not be wrong. Could it? Contact the Ashiri leadership, Zythus ordered. Tell them we will renegotiate the treaty terms. Tell them they are not accepting communications, Vex interrupted. Neither are the Velkron. Both sides are ignoring all council messages. For the first time in his long life, Zythus felt genuine fear. Across the galaxy, the consequences of humanity's withdrawal spread like ripples on a pond. Captain Jiwoo Lee commanded the human cargo ship Steady Hand. For 3 years, he had made regular runs through the war zones, delivering medicine and food to refugee stations. His ship was tough, built to human military standards. His crew knew how to navigate combat zones. They had saved thousands of lives. Now his ship sat in dock at Nova Station, and the cargo holds were full of supplies that would never be delivered. Captain, we have another distress call, his first officer said. Refugee Station Gamma 7. They are running out of medical supplies. 3,000 civilians, mostly children. They are begging for help. Jiwoo looked at the star charts. Gamma 7 was deep in the war zone. Normally, he would have already launched. But his orders from Earth were clear. Send them our regrets, Jiwoo said. The words tasted like poison. Tell them we cannot help. Sir, people will die. I know, Jiwoo said. But we have our orders. Humanity is withdrawing from Council space. We observe and learn now. That is what they told us to do. The first officer left to send the message. Jiwoo sat alone in his cabin and tried not to think about the children at Gamma 7. On Concordia Station, the Council scrambled to respond. They organized new trade convoys to replace the human ships. Within a week, they learned why only humans had been willing to do this work. The Council convoy consisted of 7 ships from 5 different species. They carried food, medicine, and construction materials for a dozen refugee stations. As they approached the first waypoint, Velkron fighters appeared on their sensors. This is Council Humanitarian Convoy Delta, the convoy leader broadcast. We are on a peaceful mission. We carry supplies for civilian refugees. The Velkron fighters opened fire without responding. The Council ships panicked. None of them were military vessels. Their shields collapsed under the assault. 3 ships were destroyed immediately. The survivors scattered. These Contides laugh, abandoning their cargo and fleeing in different directions. At Refugee Station Gamma 7, the children waited for supplies that would never arrive. Ambassador Min-Jun Kim sat in his office on Earth and read the reports. Each one was worse than the last. The Velkron-Ashiri war was expanding. Other conflicts were erupting across the galaxy. Trade routes collapsed. Economies crashed. The death toll climbed into the billions. His assistant, Seo-Yun Park, entered with another stack of data pads. 17 more requests for mediation, sir, she said. Minor species conflicts. They all specifically request human mediators. What did you tell them? That humanity is observing and learning, as instructed by the Council, Seo-Yun said. She looked tired. They are not taking it well. The Marian Union and the Thax Confederation have been disputing mining rights for months. Without a neutral mediator, they are preparing for war. Min-Jun closed his eyes. We are not neutral. We were just fair. The Council never understood the difference, Seo-Yun said. A priority message came through. Min-Jun opened it and read quickly. His expression grew darker. "The Velcron have sent an official envoy to Earth," he said. "They are requesting human mediation. They say the Council's peace treaty was a disaster, and they want our original proposal instead." Then, 1. What did we tell them? The same thing we tell everyone. We are observing and learning. Minjun stood and walked to the window. Below, the lights of the city stretched to the horizon. "Do you know what the worst part is, Seoyun? We could stop this. Right now. We could go back to Concordia and broker a real peace. We have the solution in our files. But if we do that, the Council learns nothing. They will disrespect us again, ignore us again, and more people will die in the next crisis. So we let people die now to teach the Council a lesson?" Seoyun asked quietly. "No," Minjun said. "We let people die now because the Council would rather preserve their pride than accept help from newcomers. That is not our choice. It is theirs." On Concordia Station, High Arbiter Zythus faced increasing pressure. The council chamber, once filled with respectful silence when he spoke, now rang with angry voices. "The Ashiri betrayed the treaty exactly as the humans predicted," shouted the delegate from the Carvex Unity. "Our worlds burn while you maintain that the Council's wisdom is supreme." "The situation is complex," Zythus began. "The situation is simple," another delegate interrupted. "We insulted humanity. We dismissed their solution. We implemented a plan that favored the wealthiest bidder. Now, we reap what we have sown. Humanity will return," Zythus said, trying to project confidence he did not feel. "They are young and impulsive. When their anger cools, they will see that the galaxy needs them. They will come back. And we will accept their apology for this childish tantrum." "Their apology?" The Marian delegate, Talvex, stood. He was young for a council member, only 2,000 years old. "High Arbiter, humanity offered us wisdom, and we spat on it. What exactly should they apologize for?" "For abandoning the galaxy in its time of need," Zythus thundered. "We told them to observe and learn," Talvex said quietly. "They are doing exactly what we instructed. The failure is ours, not theirs." Zythus dismissed the session before more dissent could spread. But Talvex's words haunted him. Could the humans actually be right? Could 50,000 years of council wisdom be wrong? No. It was impossible. Humanity was simply too young to understand. They would learn. The galaxy would stabilize. Everything would return to normal. But the galaxy did not stabilize. The war grew worse. More species joined one side or the other. Ancient alliances shattered. New hatreds formed. And through it all, humanity watched. Human merchant ships defended human space, but ventured nowhere else. Human mediators stayed home. Human aid ships sat in dock, their cargo holds full, while refugee stations ran out of supplies. Only once did humanity break their silence. A council medical convoy, caught in a combat zone, sent a desperate distress call. They were carrying wounded civilians, including children. Their navigation systems had failed. Enemy fighters closed in. The human hospital ship Mercy's Hand was nearby. Captain Chen Yu heard the distress call and made a decision that would have gotten her court-martialed. "Navigation, plot a course into that combat zone," she ordered. "Medical teams, prepare for mass casualties. We are going in." "Captain, our orders," her first officer started. "Our orders say nothing about watching children die when we can save them," Chen Yu snapped. "Now move." The Mercy's Hand jumped into the combat zone. Human ships were tougher than council vessels, and Chen Yu's crew had experience in war zones. They reached the council convoy, established a protective screen, and evacuated every single survivor. 15,000 lives saved. Then they jumped away without saying a word. The council tried to thank them, tried to spin it as a sign that humanity was returning. But Chen Yu's report to Earth Command was leaked to the galactic media. We saved lives because humans do not let people die when we can help, Chen Yu had written. But we will not return to council service until the council admits what everyone else already knows. They were wrong. The humans were right. And pride matters less than peace. The report went viral across 1,000 worlds. Civilian populations demanded answers. Why had the council rejected humanity's proposal? How many had died because of council pride? High Arbiter Zythus issued a statement defending the council's decision. Almost nobody believed him. The galaxy bled, and humanity watched. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was dying. What had started as a war between the Velkron Dominion and the Ashiri Collective had spread like a disease. The Velkron's allies joined the fight. Then the Ashiri's allies responded. Ancient defense pacts activated. Old grievances resurfaced. Species that had lived in peace for centuries suddenly found themselves at war. Junior Council member Talvex stood in the observation deck of Concordia Station and tried to count the burning worlds on the tactical display. He gave up after 50. There were too many. How did we let this happen? He whispered. We followed our wisdom. A voice said behind him. High Arbiter Zythus approached. Moving slowly. He had aged visibly in these months. 50,000 years of knowledge cannot be wrong. Can it not? Talvex turned to face the High Arbiter. High Arbiter. With respect, I have been studying the human proposal. The one we rejected, that simplistic document? Zythus dismissed it with a wave. I am surprised. You waste your time. It addressed everything, Talvex said. The resource disputes, the historical grievances, the need for neutral oversight. Everything that has caused this war to spread. Ambassador Kim identified the real problems and offered real solutions. He offered easy answers, Zythus said. The galaxy is more complex than human minds can grasp. Is it? Talvex pulled up his datapad. I have been researching human diplomatic efforts over the past 200 years. Did you know? Their mediation success rate is 87%. 87% of conflicts they mediated resulted in lasting peace. Zythus said nothing. I compared that to the Council's success rate over the same period, Talvex continued. 43%. High Arbiter. Less than half. And most of those successes were only temporary. The conflicts restarted within a decade. Statistics mean nothing, Zythus said, but his voice lacked conviction. They cannot measure the subtleties of ancient wisdom. Perhaps ancient wisdom has become ancient pride, Talvex said quietly. Zythus left without responding, but Talvex's words had struck deep. For the first time, the High Arbiter wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. On Earth, the human government received visitors every day. Desperate ambassadors from across the galaxy, all begging for the same thing. Help us. Mediate for us. Save us. The answer was always the same. Humanity is observing and learning. Director Park Hae-jin of Earth's diplomatic corps hated giving that answer. She sat in her office and reviewed the latest casualty reports. 15 billion dead. 20 billion displaced. Economies collapsing. Refugee crises everywhere. We could stop this, her deputy said. One word from us, and we could broker peace. And when the next crisis comes? Hae-jin asked. When the Council dismisses us again, ignores us again. What then? How many more will die because the galaxy's leaders refuse to listen? All. So we let billions die to prove a point? No, Hae-jin said firmly. We let billions die because the species who caused this refuse to admit their mistake. The Council started this war with their biased treaty. They can end it by accepting responsibility. But the Council did not accept responsibility. High Arbiter Zythus continued to insist that the situation would have been worse under humanity's simplistic plan. Most Council members publicly supported him, though fewer believed him each day. The galactic economy collapsed next. For centuries, trade had flowed smoothly across thousands of light years. Human merchant ships had been crucial to that system. They took the dangerous routes, the unprofitable runs, the emergency deliveries. They did it because humans were tough and because they believed in helping others. Now those ships stayed home. The Torven Economic Union was the first major economy to crash. They had relied on human merchants to deliver rare minerals from contested territories. Without those deliveries, their manufacturing sector collapsed. Millions lost their jobs. Protests turned into riots. The Torven government fell in a bloody coup. The humans did this to us, the new Torven leader declared. They abandoned us out of spite. But the galactic media played footage of High Arbiter Zythus dismissing humanity as simplistic deathworlders. They showed Ambassador Kim's face as he was insulted by the council. They quoted Zythus telling humans to observe and learn. The humans are doing exactly what the council told them to do, a popular commentator said. If that has consequences, who is really to blame? The Torven leader had no answer. Minor species suffered worst of all. They had no military power to defend themselves, no economic leverage to demand attention. In the old days, they would have called for human mediators. Humans had no territorial ambitions and treated small species with the same respect as large ones. That fairness made humans trusted. Now the small species had nowhere to turn. The Marian Union and the Thax Confederation finally went to war over their mining dispute. The council tried to mediate, but both sides refused. They wanted humans, and humans would not come. Thousands died over a conflict that could have been resolved in a week with proper mediation. On Concordia Station, junior council member Talvex worked through the night. He had assembled a team of analysts, all young members from species that had joined the council relatively recently. Together, they were building an evidence file that could not be ignored. Look at this pattern, one analyst said, projecting historical data. 17 major conflicts over the past 10,000 years. In every case, a younger species proposed a solution that was dismissed. In 14 of those 17 cases, the dismissed solution was eventually proven correct. The council mistakes age for wisdom, another analyst said. But wisdom comes from learning, not from living a long time. If you do not learn from mistakes, age means nothing. Talvex compiled everything into a comprehensive report. Success rates, economic data, casualty figures, historical patterns. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity's diplomatic approach worked better than the council's because humans focused on solving problems rather than playing politics. He sent the report to High Arbiter Zythus. The response came within an hour. I have reviewed your document. I find it to be influenced by human sentimentality. You are young, Talvex. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, you will understand the true complexity of galactic affairs. This matter is closed, but it was not closed. Talvex leaked the report to his fellow council members. Some dismissed it. Others read it carefully and began asking questions they had never asked before. Then came the simulation. A team of council military analysts ran a computer model. They input all the data from before the Velkron-Ashiri War. Then they ran 2 scenarios. In the first, the council's treaty was implemented. In the second, humanity's proposal was accepted. The first scenario matched reality almost perfectly. War, escalation, billions dead, economic collapse. The second scenario showed the war ending within months. No major escalation. No alliance networks activating. Casualties in the thousands instead of billions. The galaxy remained stable and prosperous. When High Arbiter Zythus learned about the simulation, he ordered it classified immediately. But the analysts involved had lost friends and family in the war. They had watched the galaxy burn while the council claimed wisdom. They were tired of lies. The simulation leaked to the galactic media within hours. Protests erupted across 100 worlds. Civilians who had lost loved ones demanded answers. Why did the council reject the human proposal? Why did they implement a solution that favored economic interests over justice? How many had died because of council pride? Council representatives faced angry crowds wherever they appeared. Some were attacked. Others went into hiding. The authority of the Galactic Council, maintained for 50,000 years, crumbled in days. High Arbiter Zythus stood in the council chamber and faced the other members. For the first time in his life, he saw no respect in their eyes. Only accusation. "You led us into this disaster," the Velkron representative said. "His species had lost 3 billion in the war. You promised that your wisdom would bring peace. Instead, you brought death. The humans were right," the Ashiri representative added. "Her homeworld was in ruins. Their proposal would have saved my people. But you dismissed them because they made you feel inferior. I acted according to council tradition." Zythus began. "Your traditions killed my children," someone screamed from the gallery. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted. Some called for Zythus's resignation. Others demanded he face trial for incompetence. Talvex watched it all and felt no satisfaction. Yes, the council was finally admitting its mistakes, but the admission came too late for billions of dead. Too late for the shattered economies and broken families. Too late for the children who had starved on refugee stations while human aid ships sat in dock. The truth had finally emerged. The council's ancient wisdom had become ancient arrogance. They had valued their pride over peace, their politics over people's lives, and the galaxy had paid the price. Now, only one question remained. Would the council actually change? Or would they simply find new ways to repeat old mistakes? Talvex sent a message to Earth. "We were wrong. You were right. Please, help us." He did not know if humanity would answer. The message reached Earth in the middle of the night. Director Park Hae-jin was awakened by her security detail and rushed to the communications center. She arrived to find her entire senior staff already assembled. "What is it?" she asked. "Message from Concordia Station," her deputy said. "From Junior Council member Talvex. He is requesting a private meeting with Ambassador Kim." Hae-jin pulled up the message. It was short and direct. "We were wrong. You were right. Please help us." "Is this a trick?" someone asked. "I do not think so," Ambassador Min-jung Kim said from the doorway. He had arrived moments after Hae-jin. "I have met Talvex. He is young for the council. Only 2,000 years old. He was one of the few who seemed uncomfortable when Zythus insulted us. One member out of hundreds," Hae-jin said. "That is not enough." "It is a start," Min-jun replied. "And we are running out of time. The death toll is now over 20 billion. Entire civilizations are collapsing. If we wait for the perfect moment, there may be no galaxy left to save." End quote. Hae-jin considered. She knew Min-jun was right, but she also knew the political reality. If humanity returned to the council without any real changes, they would be disrespected again. The next crisis would be worse. "What are your terms?" she asked. Min-jun had been preparing for this question for months. Formal recognition that human proposals carry equal weight to any council member's proposal. A guarantee that economic interests cannot override justice in peace negotiations. And most importantly, the council must publicly admit that age does not equal wisdom. Results matter more than tradition. "They will never accept those terms," the deputy said. "Then more people will die," Min-jun said quietly. "And that blood will be on the council's hands, not ours." On Concordia Station, the council convened an emergency session. High Arbiter Zythus stood before them, no longer as a leader, but as an accused. "You have brought shame upon us all," the Velkron representative declared. "Your arrogance cost my species 3 billion lives. I call for a vote of no confidence." "Seconded," said the Ashiri representative. "Thirded," said a dozen voices at once. Zythus looked around the chamber. Not a single delegate met his eyes. Even his oldest allies turned away. 50,000 years of tradition. And it had come to this. I acted according to council wisdom, he said weakly. You acted according to your pride, Talvex said, standing. And you taught us all an important lesson, High Arbiter. Wisdom is not about how long you have lived. It is about having the courage to admit when you are wrong. The vote was called. It was unanimous. High Arbiter Zythus, leader of the Galactic Council, was removed from power. He left the chamber in silence. A broken leader of a broken institution, Talvex was appointed as interim arbiter. His first act was to send an official delegation to Earth. The delegation arrived 3 days later. 12 representatives from across the galaxy, led by Talvex himself. They came not in a massive warship, but in a simple, diplomatic shuttle. They carried no weapons, no guards, no symbols of authority. They came as supplicants, not rulers. Minjun met them in Geneva, at the Human Diplomatic Corps headquarters. The meeting room was small, deliberately so. No grand chambers, no displays of power, just a simple room with a table and chairs. Talvex entered first. He was tall, covered in silver fur, with 4 arms and large, sad eyes. He looked exhausted. Ambassador Kim, he said, bowing low. Thank you for seeing us. Please sit, Minjun said. His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. The delegates took their seats. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The weight of 20 billion dead hung in the air between them. We were wrong, Talvex finally said. Everything you predicted came true. The treaty failed, the war escalated, the galaxy burned. And it is our fault. Yes, Minjun said simply. It is. Some delegates flinched at his bluntness. But Talvex nodded. We need your help. Talvex continued. Both the Velkron and the Ashiri have requested human mediation. Dozens of other conflicts need resolution. The galactic economy is collapsing. Without human merchant ships, critical supply lines have failed. Refugee stations are running out of resources. We cannot fix this alone. Number. Why should we help you? Minjun asked. You insulted us. You dismissed our wisdom. You told us to observe and learn like children. Why should we return to a council that has shown us such contempt? Because people are dying, Talvex said quietly. And I know humans well enough to know that you care about that. You did not withdraw out of spite. You withdrew because we left you no choice. But now we are offering a choice. Please, Ambassador, help us. Minjun studied the young council member. There was genuine remorse in those eyes. But remorse was not enough. I have conditions, Minjun said. He laid out the same terms he had given Director Heijin. Equal weight for human proposals. No economic override of justice. Public admission that age does not equal wisdom. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. These terms would fundamentally change how the council operated. They would end the supremacy of the ancient species. We accept, Talvex said immediately. Just like that? Minjun asked, surprised. Just like that. Talvex confirmed. Ambassador, we have spent 50,000 years believing our age made us wise. But you proved us wrong in 6 months. We implemented our sophisticated solution, and billions died. If we had accepted your simplistic proposal, billions would still be alive. That is not wisdom. That is catastrophic failure. He stood and bowed again, deeper this time. We do not deserve your help, Talvex said. But we are asking for it anyway. Not because we are wise, or powerful, or ancient, but because we are desperate, and we finally understand that we need to change. Minjun looked at the other delegates. Some still showed pride in their eyes, but most looked like Talvex, exhausted and humbled. The galaxy had broken them, and maybe that was what needed to happen. I need something more, Minjun said. A public apology. Not to me, to the entire galaxy. The Council must broadcast an admission of what happened. You rejected our proposal out of pride. Your biased treaty caused the war to escalate. 20 billion died because you valued tradition over truth. All of this must be said publicly. The delegates looked at each other. This was humiliation. The Council had never admitted fault so publicly in its entire history. We will do it, Talvex said. We will tell the truth, no matter how shameful. Minjun nodded slowly. Then humanity will return. But understand this, Talvex. We are not returning to the old council. We are helping to build a new one. A council where wisdom is measured by results, not age. Where junior species have equal voice with ancient ones. Where pride takes a back seat to peace. That is what we want, Talvex said. That is what we need. The next day, the Galactic Council broadcast across every communication channel in known space. Talvex stood before the cameras. And behind him stood every council member. People of the galaxy, Talvex began. I am Junior Council Member Talvex, appointed as Interim High Arbiter after the removal of Zythus. I speak to you today to admit the Council's failures. He paused, gathering courage. 6 months ago, humanity presented a proposal to end the Velkron-Ashiri War. Their solution was fair, practical, and based on addressing the real causes of conflict. We dismissed it. We called it simplistic. We insulted humanity's wisdom and implemented our own solution instead. The broadcast showed footage of Zythus's dismissive comments, of Ambassador Kim being mocked, of the human delegation walking out. Our solution failed within days. Talvex continued. The war escalated exactly as Ambassador Kim predicted. 20 billion sentient beings have died because we valued our pride over practical wisdom. 20 billion deaths that could have been prevented if we had simply listened. His voice cracked with emotion. We were wrong. Humanity was right. And we are publicly apologizing, not just to humanity, but to every being who suffered because of our arrogance. The Council has existed for 50,000 years, but age does not equal wisdom. Humanity has been in space for only 2 centuries, but they understood what we could not. Peace requires fairness, not politics. Justice matters more than tradition, and listening matters more than pride. He looked directly into the camera. We are asking humanity to return and help us rebuild. Not because they owe us anything, but because they are better at this than we are, and because the galaxy needs their wisdom more than it needs our ancient pride. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, people watched in stunned silence. The Council had never admitted such complete failure, never shown such humility. For some, it was too little, too late. For others, it was the first step toward real change. On Earth, Minjun Kim prepared to return to Concordia Station. This time, he would not be dismissed or mocked. This time, humanity's voice would be heard. Ambassador Minjun Kim's shuttle approached Concordia Station for the second time. The view was the same as before. The same stars. The same gleaming station. But everything else had changed. 6 months ago, he had left in anger and disappointment. Now he returned with humanity's full diplomatic corps, a dozen merchant ships loaded with humanitarian aid, and medical teams ready to help. But most importantly, he returned with a promise from Earth. Humanity would help rebuild the galaxy, but never again would they be dismissed. The docking bay was crowded with delegates from across the galaxy. As Minjun stepped off the shuttle, he expected the usual formal reception. Instead, Interim High Arbiter Talvex walked forward and did something unprecedented. He knelt. Ambassador Kim, Talvex said, his voice carrying across the bay. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you back. We are honored by your presence. and grateful for your wisdom. Minjun felt uncomfortable with the display. Please stand, High Arbiter. We are here to work together, not to receive worship. Talvex rose, but the message had been sent. The galaxy's attitude toward humanity had fundamentally changed. The first priority was ending the Velkron-Asheri War. Minjun met with representatives from both species in a conference room. The atmosphere was tense. Both sides had lost billions. Both sides blamed each other. The hatred ran deep. Gentlemen, Minjun began, I am not here to tell you that your pain does not matter. You have both suffered terribly. But continuing this war will not bring back the dead. It will only create more grieving families. The Velkron representative, General Thax, slammed his fist on the table. They destroyed our core worlds. How can we make peace with murderers? And you starved our colonies? The Asheri representative, Commander Silith, shot back. You used your economic power to cheat us for decades. Both of you are right, Minjun said calmly. General Thax, the Asheri do bear responsibility for their surprise attack. Commander Silith, the Velkron did use unfair economic practices. You both have legitimate grievances. But you also both have a choice. Continue fighting until nothing is left, or find a way to live together. He pulled up the original human proposal from 6 months ago, the one the Council had dismissed. This is still the solution, Minjun said. The Korthon Nebula becomes neutral territory. An independent board manages access, with equal representation from both sides. You share the resources fairly. You both get what you need. Nobody wins completely. But nobody loses everything. Why should we trust this board? General Thax asked. Because humans will chair it, Commander Silith said quietly. She had been reading the proposal. Ambassador, you are proposing that humanity oversees the resource distribution? For 10 years, Minjun confirmed. Long enough for trust to rebuild. After that, you can manage it yourselves, or extend our mandate. But yes, we will ensure fairness. And what does humanity gain? General Thax asked suspiciously. Nothing, Minjun said. We have no interest in the nebula's resources. We have no territorial ambitions in your sectors. We gain nothing, except the knowledge that we helped end a war. Both representatives looked skeptical. In galactic politics, nobody helped for free. There was always an angle, always a hidden agenda. I know it is hard to believe, Minjun said. But humans measure success differently than you do. We do not count profit or territory. We count lives saved and peace maintained. That is what we value. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Minjun worked 18-hour days, mediating disputes, finding compromises, building trust. Slowly, the two sides stopped shouting and started talking. They began to see each other as people, rather than enemies. The breakthrough came when General Thax's daughter, a civilian who had survived the Asheri attack, met with Commander Silith's son, a soldier who had lost his legs in battle. They talked about their losses, their grief, their exhaustion with war. By the end, they were both crying. I am tired of killing, Silith's son said. I just want to go home. So do I, Thax's daughter replied. So does everyone. Their meeting was broadcast across both empires. Civilians on both sides rallied for peace. The military and political leaders could no longer ignore the people's voices. The treaty was signed on the 32nd day of negotiations. The Velkron and Asheri committed to peace, accepted human oversight of the Korthon Nebula, and agreed to reparations and reconciliation processes. Both sides acknowledged their mistakes and pledged to work together. When Minjun stepped out of the conference room, exhausted but satisfied, he found the entire station waiting. Delegates from hundreds of species lined the corridors. As he walked past, they applauded. It was not just for ending the war. It was for showing them what real diplomacy looked like. But the work was far from finished. Dozens of other conflicts still burned across the galaxy. Min Jun deployed human mediators to each one. They brought the same approach. Fairness. Practical solutions. Focus on results rather than politics. One by one, the conflicts ended. The Marian Union and Thax Confederation, who had been preparing for war over mining rights, accepted human mediation. The solution took 2 days to implement. Both sides got fair access to the disputed territory. Nobody had to die. 2 days. The Marian representative said in wonder. We argued for months, and humans solved it in 2 days. We did not solve it. The human mediator, Ambassador Li Sujin, corrected. You did. We just helped you see past your pride to find the solution you already knew. The galactic economy began to recover next. Human merchant ships returned to their routes, delivering supplies to remote colonies and dangerous territories. Human aid stations opened on refugee worlds, providing food, medicine, and hope. Captain Jiwoo Lee, who had sat in dock for months with a cargo hold full of supplies, finally returned to space. His first destination was Refugee Station Gamma 7, where 3,000 civilians had been waiting for medicine. When the steady hand docked, the station administrator met Jiwoo at the airlock. She was crying. We thought you had forgotten us, she said. We never forgot, Jiwoo said gently. We were just waiting for the right time to return. We are here now. We will not leave again. On Concordia Station, the Council underwent fundamental reforms. Talvex, now confirmed as High Arbiter, implemented new rules. Proposals would be judged on merit, not on the age of the species presenting them. Economic considerations would be documented and reviewed to prevent corruption. And most importantly, the Council would measure its success not by tradition maintained but by problems solved. We are building something new, Talvex announced to the assembled Council. A government that serves the galaxy, rather than ruling it. A forum where wisdom is earned through results, not inherited through age. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some ancient species still believed in their superiority. They grumbled about humans having too much influence, about traditions being destroyed, but when they looked at the results, they could not argue. Wars were ending. Economies were recovering. Refugees were being helped. The galaxy was healing. And humanity was at the center of that healing. 3 months after his return, Min Jun stood once again at the window of Concordia Station, watching the stars. Talvex joined him. I wanted to thank you, Talvex said, for coming back, for helping us. We did not deserve your help after how we treated you. No, you did not, Min Jun agreed. But that is not why we returned. We came back because people needed help, because children were dying, because we could make a difference. That is what makes you different, Talvex said. You help, not because of what you can gain, but because of what you can give. The Council forgot that lesson. We became focused on power and prestige. We forgot that the purpose of government is to serve. Will you remember it now? Min Jun asked. I hope so, Talvex said. We have learned an expensive lesson. 20 billion lives expensive. I do not think anyone will forget that cost. Min Jun nodded. He hoped Talvex was right. But he had lived long enough to know that people forget. Institutions become corrupt. Pride creeps back in. The galaxy would need constant vigilance to prevent the same mistakes. But for now, there was peace. And that was enough. A year after humanity's withdrawal, a ceremony was held on Concordia Station. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the dedication of a new memorial. It was a simple monument, listing the names of all 20 billion beings who had died in the war. At the top of the memorial were carved 5 words in every galactic language. Wisdom is not found in age. Below that, a longer inscription. This memorial honors those who died because the Galactic Council valued pride over peace. We swear to never let arrogance overcome wisdom again. We swear to listen to all voices, not just the oldest ones. We swear to measure our success by lives saved, not traditions maintained. This is our promise to the dead, and our commitment to the living. Min Jun stood before the memorial with tears in his eyes. So many lives lost, so much suffering that could have been prevented. If only the Council had listened 6 months earlier. But they had learned. The galaxy had changed. And maybe, just maybe, those 20 billion had not died in vain. Talvek stood beside him. What will you do now, Ambassador? Now that peace is restored? Go home for a while, Min Jun said. Spend time with my family. Rest. But we will be watching. High Arbiter, if the Council starts to forget these lessons, if pride begins to override wisdom again, humanity will remind you. We will always remind you. Good, Talvek said. We need someone to keep us honest. Someone to tell us when we are wrong. Will you do that? Always, Min Yun promised. He left Concordia Station the next day. As his shuttle departed, he looked back at the station, and the memorial, and the galaxy that had finally learned to listen. Wisdom was not about how long you had lived, Min Jun thought. It was about learning from your mistakes and having the courage to change. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. Now it was up to them to remember it. And if they forgot, humanity would be there to remind them. Not with arrogance or pride, but with the simple truth that had saved the galaxy. Sometimes, the youngest voice in the room is the wisest one. You just have to be willing to listen.